In this tutorial we're going to take a look at disbursements. Now I've created a tutorial on disbursements previously, but this tutorial is going to take a look more at the transactions that make up the disbursement and not so much at the disbursement itself. So the income transactions and the expense transactions and the fee transactions and what impact they have on the disbursement. So I've got a fairly simple setup at the moment. I've got one tenant, I've got one property, and I've got one owner. Now if I take a closer look at the owner, go to the Disbursements tab, and this is where I enter in the management fee percentage or value. Now I can enter a value of say 10% including taxes. Now tax is something we should have a look at first, so if I just cancel out of this, we go to Functions, Options, and up here we have the tax rate to be charged on the management fee itself. So this is a GST or VAT type tax that we're talking about here on the management fee. So I'm going to set this up as 15%, and I'm going to change the tax name to be GST, because that is 15% GST is what currently applies in New Zealand at the time of creating this. So I go back to my owner again, to disbursements. Now I can set this as either an exclusive or an inclusive value. A lot of people tend to do their fees as a percent plus GST, so they might say 8% plus GST, so they would put 8 in this value. It automatically calculates the GST and the inclusive value. Or they can do what I'm going to do, is I'm going to say 10% including tax. 10% is a nice round number so you can understand the numbers later. We can also do a value instead. So if we want to, we can say, instead of doing a percentage, we can do a fixed value of say 50. Each time we do a disbursement we want to charge 50. Or we can do both. We can, like I've got set up at the moment, I've got 10% plus 50. But for this demonstration I'm going to change the percentage, the value to 0, so that I'm charging only 10%. We've got a couple of other options down here. We've got this option here which says if we tick this option, then this particular owner won't be charged any tax on their disbursements. So it blanks out the taxes. And this option down here is an option to exclude this particular owner from disbursements. And if I tick that option, when we do our disbursements, that owner won't get a disbursement. But I'm going to turn that off. So the important thing to note here is I've got 10% including tax. So I'll save that. Now the next thing I want to do is actually start recording some transactions. At the moment I don't have any transactions. So I'm going to load my first transaction, and I'm going to say that I have received some rent from a tenant, and I'm going to enter it as 900 that I've received. Select the correct property, the correct tenant, and save that. Now if we go over and take a look at the effect that that's had, we're now going to do our first disbursement. So I'll go to the Disbursements tab and I want to add a disbursement. Up here we can see the rent, the income since the last disbursement. That's the 900 that I created just a few seconds ago. I haven't entered any expenses yet, so total income less expenses is 900. Our fee, which I created as 10%, so that's $90. So we can see down here the amount of fee is 90 and the amount to pay to the owner is 810, and that's calculated as this number here, income less expenses, less the 90 fees, gives us 810. Now I'm going to save that. Now if I go over to my transactions, into my cash book again, load my transactions, you'll see that I've now got two transactions in there. There's the rent that I manually entered previously of 900, and there's the disbursement. So disbursement is automatically added to the cash book for me as an expense. If I edit this this rent transaction down here, you'll see down the bottom here it says this transaction has been disbursed. And if I click this button, it'll tell me who it was disbursed to and the date of the disbursement. Also, because it's been disbursed, you'll notice up here that the amount is now greyed out. I can't change that amount. Once it's been disbursed, it's effectively locked in. Can't change it. So what if I've made a mistake? What if that amount wasn't 900? It should have been 1,000 instead. I've got a couple of options. If I've already paid the owner the 810, I've actually gone to my bank and I've transferred the money to their bank account, then what I need to do is create a new transaction. So I can add a new transaction of rent of 100 to fix my mistake. And what will happen is that amount will get dispersed next time I do a disbursement. So it'll correct itself next time. But the other thing I can do, if I've found my mistake early enough and I haven't yet paid the owner, I can actually go over to my disbursement and I can just delete it again. By deleting this disbursement, it effectively undoes that transaction. The disbursement is gone, and if I go back to my transactions again, you'll see the disbursement has been removed from my cash book as well. And if I edit this transaction, the message down here to say that it's been dispersed has also been removed, and I can now edit this amount. So I can say correct the amount and change it to 1,000, which is how much it should have been in the first place. I can now go back to my disbursements and I can recreate that disbursement, and see now the amount is 1,000. So to correct the error, I delete the disbursement, I fix the transactions, and I recreate the disbursement again. Now I'm not going to save this transaction, instead I'm just going to cancel it. I'm going to do a few more transactions. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to add a new transaction. Now this time it's going to be an expense. Let's say I had a repair to do to a house, maybe there was a leaking tap, or I need to hire a plumber. So they came in, they fixed the house, and they've sent me the bill as the property manager. So I'm going to record it as an expense. I'm going to pay the bill. So the amount that I'm paying is 200, and I'm going to save that. Now if I go and take a look at my disbursements again, now that I've created that, I add, you'll see the rent is still the same, 1,000, but now we've got expenses in here of 200. So I'm subtracting that 200 from the amount that I'm going to pay to the owner. So you'll see the amount, income less expenses, is 800. My fee of 10% is 10% of that number there, is 100. So the amount to pay to the owner is now 700. So I've deducted that 200 to be paid to that owner. Again, I'm just going to cancel this transaction, and I'll show you some other things that we can do. If I go over to my expense group and I can take a look at that rent, the repairs expense group that I selected previously, I've got an option down here to exclude from disbursement calculations. Now if I choose that, this transaction now is not going to have no impact on disbursements at all. So if I save that and I go back and do my disbursement again, that expense of 200 is now completely removed from the disbursement. So it's like it never happened. The transaction still exists in the cash book. There it is there. The transaction still exists, but I'm excluding it from the disbursements. Let's undo that. Go back to our repairs group. We'll undo this. I've got another option down here. I've got an option to charge an extra fee to the owner for these transactions. Now some property managers, if they do work on behalf of the owner, they will charge an additional fee for that work. So I've got to set up, I'm now going to charge an extra fee of 10% of the extra charge of the actual work itself. So I'm going to save that. Now if I go back to my transactions, take a look at that repairs transaction, I've now got an option down here. It's on a per transaction basis. I can actually turn this on and off on a per transaction basis. So I'm going to say create an extra fee for the $200 repair. So if we take a look at what impact that's had, again I'll go over here and create my disbursement again. The $200 is back in there, but you'll notice down here there's an extra fee of 20, which is 10% of that 200. So the fee is now these two numbers combined. We've got our standard fee of 100 plus the extra fee of 20. So the total fee is now 120. And that 20 is also being deducted from the amount that we pay back to the owner. If I go back to these groups again, I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to say don't charge the extra fee to the owner after all. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to go to my transaction, and I'm going to say for this transaction don't charge the extra fee. I'm going to go over here to the expense group and I'm going to turn off the extra fee. So now all I'm charging is just that 200, keeping it simple. Now while I'm over here, let's take a look at income groups, because we've got some special settings on income groups as well. I'm going to take a look at the rent income group that I've used. We've got a couple of options here. One is to exclude from disbursement calculations. The same as with the rent, the repairs expense group, I can actually choose to exclude the income from the disbursement altogether. Now with this option turned on, there will be no income from this group charged. So if I save that, do my disbursement, so that income of 1,000 is now gone. You also notice that there's no fee down here either, because we're taking a percentage of the income. Because we've just chosen to exclude it, it won't be included. Now you wouldn't normally do that with your income, with your rent, so we'll turn that back off. But there is another option down here. I can choose to exclude from disbursement calculations but pay the money to the owner anyway. Now if I save this, what will happen? Do my disbursement again. The 1,000 is still going to be dispersed to the owner, but you notice that there's no fee being charged on it. So effectively what's happening is we're saying pay the money to the owner but don't charge any fees on it. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to undo that, because that wouldn't normally make sense for rent. So in this situation here, with both of these ticked, we pay the money to the owner but we don't charge a fee. With this one unticked, it's excluded. We don't pay the money to the owner and we don't charge a fee. And if we leave it like this, then we do pay the money to the owner and we do charge a fee. So those are the three combinations you can have. For rent, you'd normally leave it like this. So if I go back to my owner and do a disbursement again, we're back to the standard situation. We're charging 1,000 fee, we've got 1,000 income, 200 expense, and 100 fees. Now what I can do is I can take a look at the transactions tab and see how that was made up. So I can see there's the rent of 1,000 and the expense of 200. So if I'm unsure where these numbers came from, I can take a look at the transactions tab, and that drills down and shows me the details of what transactions made up those numbers. Another thing I can do is I can manually create an extra fee. So I'm going to go over here to extra fee, and this is a situation where you want to charge the owner a fee for something. Normally it would be a service that you have done on behalf of that owner. So it's not an expense, but it's a service. Like maybe you did an inspection. Maybe you want to charge the owner an additional amount every time you do an inspection of one of their properties. So I can put in here the details. So I'll just say it's an inspection fee, and I'll put in the amount of 50, and I will choose that owner to charge it to. Now if I do my disbursement again, income hasn't changed, expenses hasn't changed, but down here we have an extra fee of 50. So you'll see my fees is now these two numbers of 150, which is our standard fee plus the extra fee that I just created. And the amount to pay to the owner has been subtracted, and we've taken the 50 out of the amount that we're paying to that owner. And if we go to Transactions tab, you'll see the extra fee down here. Now so far I've been creating the disbursements one at a time. I've been using the add button, but there's actually a quicker way to do it. If you have lots of owners, like let's say you've got 100 owners, using the add button 100 times will be quite slow. So you've got an option over here called add bulk, and if I click that, enter in the date, it'll do one disbursement for each owner in the system. Now I've only got one owner, so it only lists one here. Now you'll see some familiar numbers. We've still got the income of 1,000, the expenses of 200, and the extra fee that I created of 50. And if I click on this here, I can actually drill down and take a look at, I can go to that same screen we were looking at previously. So this is how I do it if I had lots of disbursements to do. But before I do that, I'm going to show you a couple of reports. One report we're going to look at is called the Disbursement Preview Report. This is a report that you would print prior to doing disbursements. So if you just want to analyze the numbers prior to doing your disbursements, you can print this report, and it gives you a breakdown of the disbursements that would be done if you did a disbursement now. So it's like saying, if I was about to do a disbursement, what would it look like? And this here gives us a breakdown, so we can see we got the income of 1,000, the repairs, and the extra fees, all the same numbers again. So now that I've previewed the disbursements and I'm happy with them, I can actually go over and commit those disbursements. So I'm actually going to do add bulk again. I'm going to select the date, select the bank account, and I'm going to commit those disbursements. Now that that's done, I can take a look at a few other reports. I've got another report here called the last disbursement report. And if I print that, that will print the disbursements that I have now done, that I've committed. And the most important thing on this report is the amount to pay to the owner. So this report is suitable for actually printing after you've done disbursements and you're about to pay the owner, and you want to know, you want to go to your bank or go to your bank's website and enter in the amount to pay to that owner. So you can use this report to actually do your payments. Another report I'll take a look at is the owner transaction summary report. Now this is a report that's actually suitable for printing and giving to the owners themselves as a record for their records, so they can see how you came up with the numbers that you came up with when you did your disbursements. So I'm going to print that and take a look at it. If I scroll down, we'll see the similar numbers again. We've got our property repairs of 200, we've got our rent income of 1,000. Down the bottom here we have our fees, we have the $50 inspection fee, and we have the $100 fee, which was our standard disbursement, 10% of the income. It also shows us the GST or VAT amount included in those management fees, and also shows us the amount that is to be paid back to the owner. This is the amount that they should find turns up on their bank statement after you've paid them. Take a bit more look at this report. We've got a couple of options here, special options for statement and invoices reports. This first option here is to generate a single print file for review or print purposes. Now that means we can print this report, we can look at it, we can preview it. We haven't actually committed anything yet. It's just for our purposes to analyze it and make sure that it looks about right. Once we're happy with it, we can actually choose that it's a final print run, and that will actually start generating invoice numbers. If you don't tick this option, it won't generate invoice numbers, but if you tick this option, then it will automatically generate a next invoice number and we'll insert it into that report. We can also choose, when you're doing your final print run, to generate a file, a separate PDF report file, and actually attach it to the owner as an attachment. So I also have an option down here of actually sending an email to the owner themselves to tell them the details of this information that we just generated, information about the disbursement. I'm not going to send an email this time, but I am going to generate a separate print file, and I'm going to say it's a final print run, and I want to create a separate print file to attach to the owner. So if I print that, this tells me that my files have been created. So now if I go back to that owner, if I go to the attachments tab, we'll see that there's a new file attached here. It automatically attached this, generated and attached it for me, and if I open it up, you'll see there's the report with the same numbers on it. So if the owner has the ability to log in, if you've given them their logins, that they can log in over the internet, log into their own account, they can see those files online as well. So that shows you how to do disbursements, or the transactions that make up the disbursements, the income, the expenses, the fees, and then the reports at the end.